Beneath the long shadows cast by secrets and simmering conflict, the apparent calm of the Hamilton estate began to crack with the sudden and furious arrival of Vernon. Without a word of warning, he stormed through the door, eyes blazing with barely restrained rage as he scanned the luxurious yet cold space where Bill and Hayley had just indulged in a fleeting moment of intimacy, believing their world to still be whole and safe. This abrupt intrusion not only shattered their privacy, but also signaled the oncoming storm, as power, pride, and unhealed wounds became razor-sharp weapons in the hands of every player. Vernon advanced with no attempt at subtlety, prepared to unleash a torrent of bitter words and pent-up fury. He didn't need to ask what Bill was plotting. The stench of deceit saturated the air, clinging to every glance, every gesture, every heavy breath that Bill tried to mask beneath his chilly facade. In Vernon's eyes, Bill was always the consummate deceiver. A man who would exploit the weaknesses of even his own kin to protect his interests and power, or perhaps, deep down, to safeguard something burning beneath the many masks he wore so well. The air grew nearly suffocating as Vernon's accusations cut through every pretense. But what he did not anticipate was that, beyond his own anger, countless other secrets were being quietly concealed by supposed allies, secrets that threatened to push events further beyond anyone's control. At the same time, troubling signs emerged in other branches of the family. Dani, the daughter Vernon had always cherished and placed his hopes in, now found herself in torment, torn between protecting herself, her family's honor, and the pain inflicted by Bill's unpredictable actions. In Dani's eyes, Bill was not just an outsider trespassing on Dupree territory, but a silent force, forever testing boundaries and undermining the family's values. Dani felt a wave of helplessness as she faced the two most powerful men in her life, all while bearing burdens she could not share. Her inner voice became a lost echo among cold walls, a cry of defiance and despair directed at Vernon, the pillar she had always relied upon, now threatening to let everything she loved crumble under the weight of his obsession with power. Yet all these personal grievances and surface-level rage were only the beginning of a much more dangerous sequence of events. In his fury, Vernon was oblivious to the fact that Randy Parker, the man he had entrusted with the task of dealing with Kenneth, had failed catastrophically. Kenneth, who should have vanished to protect the family's deepest secrets, still roamed free as a ticking time bomb that could obliterate everything Vernon had built over decades with a single misstep. This failure wasn't just a stain on Vernon's meticulous plans. It was a direct threat to the family's very existence, leaving Vernon shaken and infuriated as he was forced to confront betrayal within his own web of power. Elsewhere, the Martin family was erupting into chaos, as years of stifled emotion finally ignited into a blaze. Smitty, with his sensitive heart and longing for peace, could no longer endure the invisible pressure from his husband. He sensed Martin's growing coldness and secrets, and, at the breaking point, delivered a harsh ultimatum. In the home that once radiated warmth, now echoing only with arguments and the desperate looks of their young daughter Samantha, the scene took on the dimensions of a family tragedy. Smitty knew love could not survive on silence and lies alone, and Martin, so confident in his ability to weather any storm, found himself halted at the brink of ruin. In these moments, the image of an ideal family shattered, their values eroded by power, ambition, and anxiety for the future. As turmoil still simmered in Martin's household, across town, the social and political fabric was also unraveling. Jacob and Naomi, both close and sharp-eyed, began to question Martin's erratic behavior, especially his efforts to keep his distance from the police officer his husband was investigating. Jacob's warning carried an ominous weight. If the secrets involving Martin and Detective Malone were ever exposed, not only Martin but everyone around him could be swept into a maelstrom. Naomi, ever perceptive, felt the old bonds fraying, knowing that a single misstep could send everything crashing into the abyss. With these mounting crises, Vernon found himself losing control. The old rules he had used to safeguard the family's standing were now just fragments. Each failure, each secret revealed, pushed him further into a spiral of resentment and regret. As the truth behind the country club scandal crept into the light, fear became Vernon's driving force, pushing him to confront not only Bill, but also himself. Sometimes, it is the terror of losing everything that makes a person most reckless, and Vernon, surrounded by ruin, had no choice but to plunge ahead, no matter what disaster awaited. Outside of these direct conflicts, people like Bill remained coolly detached, playing their own games and exploiting every opponent's weakness to expand their influence. To Bill, the Dupree family's turmoil only strengthened his hand, placing both Vernon and Danny in weaker positions so that he could control the outcome. His strategic precision, from summoning Vernon to manipulating Danny, showed not only a brilliant mind but a steely will, prepared to sacrifice all sentiment for the sake of ambition. Bill knew that a single error from his adversaries could erase all their work, while every small victory of his own laid another brick in his path to power. In such a world, no one is truly friend or foe. Boundaries blur when power and survival are at stake. Even Randy Parker, a seemingly minor player, carried secrets capable of devastating anyone in this ruthless game. His failure to eliminate Kenneth was not just Vernon's loss, but a funeral bell for the entire hidden machinery of conspiracy. Once again, the family's core values were tested, and anyone caught in this whirlwind would have to pay with blood, tears, or even their life. The chessboard grew ever more complex as background characters began to rise, holding pieces of crucial information. A staff member at the country club, once a mere bystander, witnessed things he shouldn't have seen, becoming a latent threat to Martin and his family. The harassment didn't stop at insults. It posed a real danger to their safety and reputation, driving Martin to ever greater lengths to cover up the truth, regardless of the cost. All these upheavals layered atop one another, weaving a tense, intricate tapestry where the impossible became possible. During sleepless nights, each character was haunted by their own fears, of losing loved ones, of losing themselves in a ceaseless quest for power. Danny wept quietly, Vernon raged, Bill brooded over his wine, Martin stared out the window searching for answers for his family's future, while Smitty clung to Samantha, trying to hold onto the last warmth before everything unraveled. And as the first light of dawn crept in, new schemes began to form. No one knew whether the secrets would stay buried forever or someday explode, destroying all efforts at concealment. But one thing was certain. In the world of Beyond the Gates, nothing lasts forever, and the price for power, loyalty, and kinship is sometimes far greater than anyone could have imagined. Within the gloom of what was once a happy home, the sounds of Smitty and Martin's arguments echoed off the walls, shattering like glass in the lonely dark. Smitty, once the patient one, now broke down in overwhelming emotion, unable to recognize himself in the mirror. Years of endurance had reached their limit. Martin's unspoken secrets had eroded all trust. Days spent waiting for connection, trying to listen and receiving only silence in return, had become acid eating away at love, leaving nothing but pain and confusion. Smitty's sharp warning was not just the end of a fight, but a life-or-death threshold for their marriage, a one-way ticket to the end if Martin stepped out that door. Yet as Martin's hand touched the handle, he paused, glancing back at the memories of this home, of peaceful days with Samantha, all rising like a mournful melody. His heart trembled between two choices: keep hiding the truth and lose everything, or turn back and face the harsh reality to salvage what remained. In her small room, Samantha curled up in a corner, her child's heart torn by every shattering sound. She had always believed her parents were an unbreakable fortress, her safe haven in a stormy world. But now that very home held her greatest fears. Her wide, tear-filled eyes witnessed everything falling apart, the burden of adulthood pressing on her young soul. Sometimes, just a child's gaze can calm adult anger, a lifeline for lost souls. Samantha's silent presence was not only a painful scar on her own fate, but also an awakening bell for Martin and Smitty. No matter how far down the road of hurt, there's still time to stop if they value what's most important: family. Across town, under the haze of a tense afternoon, Jacob and Naomi sat face to face, eyes shining with worry and doubt. Naomi, with the seasoned intuition of an experienced woman, sensed something terribly wrong around Martin. Unanswered questions about Martin's relationship with the cop Smitty was investigating now gnawed at her. Not idle gossip, but a direct threat to the Richardson family's safety. Jacob, with icy pragmatism, noted that Martin seemed to be running from something huge, a lurking ghost with no name. The mysterious bond with Detective Malone grew ever harder to decipher, as if an unspoken pact or even a hidden crime bound them. They wondered, was Martin covering up a massive financial scandal? Or was there a murder in which he was either victim or perpetrator? Meanwhile, Martin and Malone clung to secrecy, hiding every trace of their connection from family and community alike. Every encounter was guarded, every gesture tense with the fear of exposure. The very air around them charged enough that even a glance could squeeze the breath from your lungs. Martin knew that a single slip, a stray name, a careless word, could bring down his castle of secrets. Yet the more he tried to hide, the greater the pressure. Sleepless nights forced him to question what he was truly protecting. Reputation, power, or just the ghost of a perfect life that was already gone. Should their secret be revealed, it would endanger not just Martin and Malone, but Martin's whole family. Samantha, Smitty, all would become unwilling pawns in a perilous game. Malone, as a detective, might think he could control the outcome, but in this world, the line between ally and enemy was paper-thin, and once crossed, there was no way back. Even Jacob and Naomi, who thought themselves mere observers, shuddered at the prospect of a secret larger than anything they imagined about to come to light, threatening to tear apart the entire community of Beyond the Gates. The days that followed passed in a haze of unease, with the air thick with tension and the threat of underground storms. In Martin and Smitty's home, the silence after anger was more terrifying than any shouting. Smitty sat quietly with Samantha, gently stroking her hair, tears flowing unchecked. Martin, though he had returned, found himself unable to speak. He knew that one more step could make everything irretrievable. The secrets in his heart hung over every room like a shadow, making every breath heavy and bitter. Outside, Naomi and Jacob kept digging, determined not to let matters slide into silence. They quietly pieced together small clues, vague remarks, strange changes in Martin's routine, gradually sketching a terrifying picture of a possible crime. No one knew the truth, but their instincts screamed that the storm was near, and no one could remain untouched when the truth came out. Every relationship, no matter how strong, was tested by suspicion, betrayal, and secrecy. Meanwhile, in the darkest corner of the tale, Malone wrestled with his fear of being discovered. His meetings with Martin became sparse and cautious, but that very caution stoked the suspicions of a community sensitive to the slightest ripple. Here, the deepest secrets never sleep, and the faintest sound could awaken demons lurking in Beyond the Gates, ready to consume anyone careless or weak. And as if guided by an inescapable fate, the day when Martin and Malone's secret would be exposed drew ever closer, bringing with it a tidal wave poised to drown every attempt at happiness, every effort to preserve honor for each individual and family in this seemingly closed-off, yet perilous, world.